On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the National President of the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria. The National President brought us up to speed on what the Nigerian workers are saying as regards the demand for a new national minimum wage and other issues. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here again.
Thank you so much for your time. It was an interesting time we had with you.
Thank you.
There is this clamor for a new national minimum wage because of the inflation that we are all experiencing in the country at the moment. Are there any conversation towards ensuring that there is a committee set up to look at the indices, and probably there will be recommendations that will be made to ensure that Nigerian workers earn a living wage?
Well, thank you, Sharon. I think the issue of national minimum wage is a constitutional matter under exclusive lists, which you are aware. The one that came in 2019 with this present socioeconomic challenges added to the removal of fuel subsidy that has been eroded even before the removal of the fuel subsidy. So we are very hopeful. Don't forget that the TUC has earlier sent a memo to the government demanding for 200 naira, 200,000 naira national minimum wage. Even at that, the current socioeconomic challenges, 200,000 naira national minimum wage is eroded. And so you don't also expect that the union will sit down and then government will give the workers whatever he likes. It is not in international best practice. The issue of national minimum wage has to come with a collective bargaining, agreement to arrive at that, and then we look forward to see the implementation. I think that is the best way to go about it.
So far, has there been any tripartite conversation? Because we know that when there's conversations to be made as regards workers, we're talking about government, we're talking about employers of labor, and we also have leaders of unions that would be in this conversation. I remember very clearly that when the removal of fuel subsidy was announced, that there was a meeting, not with the tripartite body, but with labor and government. Is there any updates on this conversation or meeting that has been held? What should Nigerians be expecting?
When the removal of fuel subsidy was announced by Mr. President, and Labour was invited after the announcement, the presidential committee met with Labour. We also made our position known because the issue of Labour is on tripartism, like you rightly make mention of. And anything short of that, the outcome is defective. So when we look at what was put on the table, we also demanded for, the terms of reference of the committee so that we can look at how to make our position known. And if you look at it, we didn't take strike as an option because the conversation would be the best issue in dialoguing, But as we were invited again, and again, we look at the subcommittees where we also make the 5 subcommittees where we also send a representative to it. So we expected that the subcommittee will have also continued in their meeting, which to the best of my knowledge, because I'm a member of subcommittee, it has not really forthcoming. And we also expected that the committee that was given 2 months to come up with the report, when the work is ongoing, work in progress, before we had over the radio, television, newspaper that Mr. President have gone ahead to approach the National Assembly with that. So the outcome of the committee, will have been a collective agreement. But for now, the committee have not submitted a report. The subcommittees, to the best of my knowledge, the one that affected us, have not really met. But, Mr. President is already going around to start the implementation of the palliative, which is not what should be expected from a government that understand, social dialogue. So that is where we are for now.
The federal government of Nigeria announced the removal of your subsidy. Can you bring us up to speed on how your members have been reacting to this? And what would be your recommendation as an experienced labor leader towards policies or palliatives or anything that would just make Nigerian workers or citizens live a better life?
There's something we call fail need in development communication, and there's something we call action need. Fail need is what the government think for the people. Action need is what the people want from the government. So what government is doing now is fail need, which is not the best when you want to change the narrative. So the increase in the pump price of petroleum product have automatically set the workers and the entire Nigerian economy on fire. On fire in the sense that every living Nigerian today knows that the Nigerian economy depends on fuel. And for you to run your private business, to run your home, for the informal economy, even offices where you don't have stable power supply, you depend on fuel, either diesel or petrol. So today, as we speak, the pressure from our members to go to office, to return back home, it is indeed an ill wind that have blown neither government nor the people any good. How will you work for 2 days and expect productivity? So, for government to be productive, we need to look at the palliative to caution the effect. And that was why the presidential committee was set up. But it's unfortunate that the outcome of that committee is what we are waiting for, and government decide to take action where they don't supposed to. What government need to do, as a matter of fact, is that they should allow the committee, which was tripartite in nature, to come up with the outcome. Then they now set up strategic implementation or action plan to implement the outcome. That will be good enough, because that will take holistic concern of the Nigeria rather than divide and rule, which is an ill wind that will blow nobody any good. Again, the issue of distributing money to Nigerians' household is no longer fashionable. You can only borrow money for productive venture, not to dash. When you depend on the World Bank or IMF, their thinking is because they have an economy there that works. But Nigeria is not like that. And of course, they cannot detect to us because we have been on the detect since the 80s. That brought about structural adjustment program during the military era that brought the economy now. Devaluation, then Naira used to be at par with the dollars. They came with open market operation. All those policies of the World Bank have never worked in Nigeria. So The earlier Nigerian government realized I jettison their Greek gift, the better for us. If you want to borrow me money, allow me to do what I want to do with that money. You can't borrow me money, which you know I'm going to pay back with interest, and you are now detecting, share it to the poorest of the poorest. We've also interrogated the social register. What is the credibility of this social register? The last administration came up with what they call conditional cash transfer, 5,000, and food feeding program. I think we should not be wasting time coming up with policies that are not given any productive tendencies to Nigerians. It is not good enough. It is not good enough. So we feel that Nigerian government should come out with policies that can create opportunity for the transportation sector to thrive. That will crash the high cost of transportation by the transporters. If we have buses, forget about what used to be in the past. In the present day reality, we have electric buses, which can be pumped into the economy, and then the price of transport fare will crash. And that will help goods and services, thereby reducing the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy. Nigerian workers will be able to go to their offices. Stop telling us, go 2 days and stay at home. No. It is going to be counterproductive because employers of labor have hidden agendas. We appreciate what happened in Edo State. They provided buses, and even when they say come to work 3 days, they still work remote the other days. That is a welcome development. That is a welcome development. Other than just sitting down, throwing money, and so on, is not in the best interest of Nigerian economy.
There are some state governments that have already taken a cue from the indices that we have out there, and they've increased the minimum wage in their states. States like Lagos, Edo, and most recently, the Imo State governor also announced an increment in workers' salary. How would you react to this? Is this the right step in the right direction?
Yes, they are being proactive. We thank them for that. But let them also know when we conclude the negotiation, when the negotiation for minimum wage will start and conclude, that they will also implement what we are after. Because you can see from the last national minimum wage, a lot of states became recalcitrant, even though they were members of the committee. So in as much as we tell them they have done well, they should also bear in mind that what will be agreed at the end of it will be implemented by them.
Talking about consequential adjustments in in the salary of workers, I know that during the last minimum wage discussion, which is about 5 years ago, many state governments did not, or they refused to implement the consequential adjustments in the salary that was negotiated and signed into law by the government. How would you react to this? With this development, what more should these workers be expecting from the government, owing to the fact that we have inflation and so many other things that affect them?
You see, this consequential adjustment they are talking about in the last minimum wage is already eroded. We don't even need to talk about that again, because what we are looking at is the future of what we are expecting, because the removal of the fuel subsidy has automatically changed the dynamics of things. The socioeconomic challenges is so heavy that no worker can survive this in the next few months if intervention urgently are not done by the government.
Finally, talking about peculiar allowances, which was spearheaded by you and which Nigerian federal government workers are already enjoying at the moment. A lot has been said about it, and if there's going to be any possibility of this policy to be taken to the state government level to see if workers at the state level can also enjoy peculiar allowance, which is spearheaded?
Absolutely. You know what? When you look at issue of labor is under exclusive list, and they set a benchmark, and that what we feel. Any sane government should have even looked at that area of the peculiar allowance, because it's going to help the workers, and also it's going to stabilize the workers, at least in the interim, while we are waiting for the national minimum wage. Those allowances are not taxed, are not taxed. In fact, it would have been worse if workers don't even have that peculiar allowance when you look at now. But as I said, there are going to also be windows for several allowances, so that, government can breathe and the workers can also breathe. Because as we are talking now, any government that is saying must look into the well-being of its citizens, anything outside that, no, it means that you only govern yourself, not the people.
Thank you very much for your time. It was an interesting time we had with you.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it.
And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.